We've got a new Pixar original movie, but does it deliver? What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. So today I've got my review of Pixar's Elio. This is an original movie, not a sequel, and I just walked out of the theater, so I'm gonna give you guys my honest review. But before I do, hit that like button, subscribe to that notification bell, and be on the lookout for more videos coming very soon. So when it comes to Elio, this is a movie that I believe went through hell in production. Like, there was a trailer for this movie at some point in 2023, I want to say, and the version that was pitched to audiences back then is completely different from the final cut of the movie. So a lot of changes were made, which is why I believe the budget for this thing got up there for a Pixar film, and it just had a lot of changes along the way, which is troublesome going into the movie. That's a bit of a red flag. And so walking out of the film, having seen the final product now, I can definitely say this is a bit of a mess, and unfortunately not a big home run for Pixar, especially following up Inside Out 2. But I still have some pros. I'll start with those, and then I'll transition into the cons. Biggest pro I can say is that there are moments where the animation shines, and that's like beating a dead horse when it comes to Pixar movies, and frankly, most animation in general, because as a medium, it's come so far since the early, to mid-90s. It's evolved so much for the better, so we have this highly advanced technology that's used to animate these films, and so there are sequences in space with these creatures, or, hyperspeed, where you're, like, in awe of the animation because it's Pixar, and of course they should be able to deliver that in the year 2025. So kudos to the animation team. They brought this world to life with these various creatures out in space, and there are some shots that really stand out as like works of art, and that's just Pixar for you. Every single movie, no matter how great the characters, plot, story, whatever it may be, the animation is going to shine, and I would say that's the case here with Elio. I would also like to compliment the film for tackling this sense of wonder in the world, especially when you're a young kid growing up, trying to figure out, what your passion in life is, what you aspire to do or be one day. They tackle that feeling really well with the lead character of Elio and his, desire to explore what's beyond, specifically space for him. And so there is a inherent level of relatability with this film, as we've all grown up and been asked, in elementary school, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a movie star. Whatever it may be, this movie captures that. It bottles up the feeling of growing up and wanting something more in the world. So I appreciate it for that. On top of that, the movie tackles this idea of loneliness and how a lot of people feel alone in the world, but there's always someone out there for you, so you're never truly alone. And it's got kind of a, beautiful Pixar message in a sense. Does it deliver the best it could have? I don't think so, and I'll get into that in the cons, but overall, there's an attempt to really pull on the heartstrings at times, and the animation is gorgeous. So it has like the shell, the early makings of what should have been a truly great standalone Pixar film, but as I transition into some of the the cons, the movie just feels pretty empty, which is unfortunate because Pixar usually is able to get the waterworks flowing by the end, and that was not the case here with Elio. I will start up front by saying you can tell this movie was chopped up and kind of just thrown together to put out the movie because it hasn't been marketed, for one, and so I don't think Disney or Pixar is the most confident in this thing performing well, and that shines to me because for like the first 20 minutes you've got a certain vision for a movie, and then there's sort of a drastic shift into what the movie becomes with Elio like actually out in space, this new side character who's probably shoehorned in, and their friendship. Then you've got, his aunt back on Earth. The movie's just a bit all over the place, and I can't stand when original movies that take place in space, like the sci-fi genre we'll call, right, where they create these terms, and it almost feels like parody, right? Like in Star Wars, you've got, Jedi, Sith, Stormtroopers, and those feel legit, and over the years, we've come to know them as cultural icons. They were just throwing words around that sounded made up, like the Gorgons and the blah, blah, blah. It just sounded like people making noises with their mouths, and these were characters and worlds and whole like universes. All these concepts were introduced in a Pixar film, and it just was so out of left field to me. Like, I like the idea of conquering space and the great unknown out there, but what it put together almost felt like a parody, in my opinion, specifically with like the tropes of the certain villainous characters. And I was just checking out, honestly. Like, I could never get invested in this story the way I wanted to, and I feel like a lot of that falls back on the fact that the movie's vague. Like, if we're to break this plot down, on paper, this kid wants to go and see what's out there in the world because he has this fascination with aliens and space, but it turns into something completely different, and the government is getting involved, and then there's like this hierarchy of power taking place with this like community of various species from around the universe, and it just got a bit complicated for no reason. This is a Pixar film, and I feel like it lost the plot along the way. A lot of that probably because there are two movies fighting with each other to try and win out, because there were at least 2 or 3 different ideas for what this movie was going to be, and that is a glaring here, which is never what you want. This is a small thing, but I noticed it multiple times in the film. It tries to enact slow-mo for animation, and in live action, you know, an 80s sports movie, when there's like a slow-mo shot of someone getting hit, like that works. Or if it's a, you know, a slow-mo celebratory right at the end of a Rocky film, yeah, character jumps up in the air, you're like, hell yeah, let's celebrate. Here, there are moments where the slow-mo effect is used, but because it's this high quality animation, it comes off as laggy. And so it feels like you're watching like a glitchy YouTube stream of a Pixar movie. And I didn't like that stylistic choice at all. It was supposed to enhance these emotional moments of triumph, but it took away from it. I was like, this looks like a glitchy, laggy animated thing. It's almost like when the animation's being rendered, it was like an incomplete render of the final product of a Pixar movie, and that was intentional, so that was just jarring to me. Little nitpicky thing there, but I was like, huh? This is kind of taken away from the big emotional moment of the movie. And to me, a lot of the character relationships are just underdeveloped here. Like, you're supposed to feel something for Elio and like his friend that he meets who's from this other planet, and I could never like buy in. It felt like such just a forced relationship that I could never like buy in and feel as moved as the movie wanted me to be, because it all just felt artificial and strung together. So there are flashes of what could have been with Elio. I mean, it's a Pixar original film. Of course, the animation is going to shine, and there are like story beats that could have worked if they were further fleshed out. But what we end up getting is a movie that feels messy more than anything else. And the most shocking part about it all is how emotionally shallow it actually comes off as. Like, there are moments where the music will swell and like the movie wants you to go, aw, and like tear up, but it just doesn't have the level of characters or writing to really warrant that response from the audience. And so to me, it came off as shallow, which is shocking to say about a Pixar original, but that's how I feel. Elio's far from the outright worst Pixar movie, but it's nothing special, and I view it as like a one-time watch. I don't really have the desire to go back and check this one out. And perhaps the most offensive thing about it all is that I have to label a Pixar movie as forgettable. I feel like we should not be saying that in the year 2025, especially when you look at all the films the studios put out over the years. And, you know, the great sequel last year with Inside Out 2, you would think they might have course corrected, but hopefully this is the last movie from like the COVID streaming era where they were just greenlighting everything, and we got, you know, Turning Red, Luca, a bunch of other films, Lightyear. I hope this is the last of that era and we can start to transition into a resurgence for Pixar, putting out the highest quality films story-wise that we can get. I don't know what I'd even rate this thing. Like, the highest I could go is a 3 out of 5. It's probably like a 2.75 out of 5, or even a 2.5, just because of how forgettable it is. The animation shines, but if I were to look at the actual plot, story, character development, all that jazz, it just falls flat, and unfortunately this is a very unmemorable Pixar movie. But those are just my honest thoughts on Elio. Let me know yours in the comments down below, and hit that like button. Of course, subscribe and hit that notification bell to help reach my goal of 150,000 subscribers here on the channel. It means quite a bit, but that'll do it. Thank you guys as always for watching, and until next time, I'll see you guys later.